It wasn't a coincidence. It was a test, cruel, deliberate, and cold. Inside the marble halls of a grand, echoing mansion, silence hung heavy beneath a chandelier that glittered like frozen stars. The only sound was the slow, patient ticking of an antique clock. In the center of the master's study, a safe stood wide open, an open wound of temptation. Bundles of cash lay inside, stacked neatly like emerald bricks, gleaming beside coiled necklaces of gold and diamonds. He knew she would come through here. He knew her routine to the minute. Alexander Ashworth, a millionaire twice over and twice as lonely, waited just beyond the hallway arch. His sharp eyes weren't filled with anger. They were alive with quiet, watchful anticipation. Yet as he waited for his housemaid to step into that room, he could never have imagined what was about to unfold. The next few minutes would strip away the armor he'd spent years building and expose a heart he thought had turned to stone. If you believe in second chances, in kindness that whispers instead of shouts, and in the strength of character that still exists in the shadows, pause for a second. Like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and stay with this story. Because what happens next will remind you that integrity still lives. Even when no one's watching, her name was Camilla, 32, slender, reserved. Her deep brown eyes carried a quiet sorrow, the kind born from too much loss and too little rest. She'd been working at the Ashworth estate for 7 months. A widow, 2 young daughters, a mother fighting cancer. Camilla moved through life like someone who had learned to carry pain without letting it spill. Every morning before dawn, she arrived in her plain gray uniform, hair tied back, shoes polished, and heart steady. She spoke softly, worked hard, and complained about nothing. To most people in the mansion, she was invisible, a quiet figure gliding behind silver trays and gleaming marble. But to Alexander, the reclusive man who had inherited wealth but not peace, Camilla had become something else entirely, a puzzle, a haunting. He had spent his life guarding his fortune and his heart. People had lied, stolen, betrayed. His ex-wife had taken millions in the divorce. Trusted employees had siphoned funds. Friends turned into leeches. So he built walls, steel around his vault, stone around his emotions. But Camilla, she was different. She didn't flatter, didn't pry, didn't try to win his favor. And despite every background check, every quiet observation, she appeared spotless. Almost too spotless. Her honesty unnerved him. It felt unnatural, too pure to be real. So he devised a plan, a test. That Wednesday morning, just before Camilla was scheduled to dust the study, Alexander ordered his staff to leave the safe wide open. The security cameras in the hallway, temporarily disabled. No witnesses, no recordings, just him and her. He wanted to see what a person would do when no one was watching. When temptation stared them in the face, would she give in? Would she hesitate? Or would she prove that goodness still existed even in silence? At 8:42 a.m. sharp, Camilla entered the study. At first she didn't notice, not until a slant of sunlight bounced off the open steel door and flashed across the floor. She froze. Her duster paused mid-air. Her eyes moved slowly to the safe, then to the doorway behind her. Nothing. Silence. Her breath hitched. For a long, tense moment she stood completely still, like someone trying to decide whether to step forward or run. From his hiding place, Alexander's pulse hammered. She took one cautious step. Then another. The soft tap of her shoes echoed in the quiet room. Camilla stopped in front of the safe. Her gloved hand hovered over the stacks of money, so close she could feel the chill of the steel. And then, she didn't take a thing. Instead, Camilla slowly reached for the cleaning rag tucked neatly into her apron. Her movements were steady, almost sacred, as she began to wipe the edge of the open safe. Not once did she touch the stacks inside. Not once did her eyes flicker with greed. She simply cleaned, careful, precise, deliberate, treating that open vault the same way she treated every other surface in that vast mansion. As if it were just another bit of dust to clear away. Then something happened. Something Alexander didn't expect. Camilla paused, reached into her pocket, and pulled out a small, folded photograph, creased from years of being opened and closed. She looked toward the empty hallway, making sure she was alone, then gently placed the photo on the shelf beside the untouched cash. It was an image of two little girls, 7 and 5, maybe, beaming through missing teeth as they stood in front of a hospital bed. A frail older woman smiled behind them, her eyes tired but full of love. Camilla whispered something under her breath, so soft that even Alexander, hiding just a few feet away, couldn't make out the words. Then with trembling fingers, she lifted the photo, kissed it tenderly and tucked it back into her pocket. Quietly, she closed the heavy steel door of the safe with a soft click. Alexander stumbled back into the shadows, breath caught in his throat. He had prepared himself to see betrayal, a hand slipping a bill away, or at least a flicker of temptation. But what he saw instead was reverence, pain, love, discipline born from a heart stronger than any lock. He turned and walked down the hallway before she could see the tears gathering in his eyes. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed replaying the moment over and over, the photo, the kiss, the untouched fortune. It wasn't about the test anymore. It was about her. He realized that for years he had seen the world through the cracks of his own bitterness. He had built a fortress around his heart and called it wisdom, but Camilla, without a word, had torn a window through it, letting light pour in. By morning, Alexander knew what he had to do. When Camilla arrived at the estate, she found a letter resting on the kitchen counter, her name written in his precise, deliberate handwriting. Inside, a note read, "Integrity is priceless, but so is peace. You've given me both. Your daughters and your mother deserve a life without fear. Please accept what's enclosed, not as a reward, but as a thank you." Beneath the letter was a check, blank, signed, and waiting. Camilla's knees gave out as she sank into the nearest chair, her eyes blurred with tears. She pressed the letter against her chest, her hands trembling. For the first time in years, the weight she carried, hospital bills, overdue rent, sleepless nights, felt lighter. Not because of charity, not because she begged, but because she had chosen integrity when no one was watching. That weekend, Alexander came to visit her small home, not as a boss but as a friend. He sat at her wooden table, laughed with her daughters, and brought along a folder filled with papers, plans for a new house in a safer neighborhood. He offered her a promotion, head of domestic operations, with full benefits and a flexible schedule so she could care for her family. But more valuable than the money, the title or the gift, he gave her something she hadn't received in a long time, trust. And for Alexander, who had built his life on suspicion, that trust was the first true act of freedom he'd ever made. Sometimes the most powerful tests aren't passed with applause, they're passed in silence, when no one's there to witness them. And sometimes the richest people in the world aren't the ones with the fullest safes, but the ones who choose truth, even when it costs them nothing and earns them no praise. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to HOA-GLORIOUS Stories. We bring you real, emotional tales that celebrate the quiet power of goodness. And before you scroll away, answer this in the comments. What would you do if no one was watching?